Hello, welcome to Wednesday night's Hotline Live, brought to you by NordVPN. NordVPN is your chance to have first-rate cybersecurity for the price of a cup of coffee per month, and they're doing a 30-day money-back guarantee, which you can find out more in our YouTube description. Just click the link. How was that, Keith? Do you like that?
Very slick. Very slick.
Thanks, Scott.
Can't put a price on a peace of mind, I guess, Dan.
That's it, exactly, Keith.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there you go.
And if you've got things that you would prefer not to be uncovered on your laptop, Dan, then I'm sure that will make you sleep easy at night. A bit of NordVPN action.
Exactly. And if you're watching at home, you're in that boat.
Send me the link then.
Yeah, by the way, there's some memo get sent out tonight about dress code.
Black Wednesday. Well, actually, it's a black day for Casper Schmeichel.
Oh, segue.
There you go. It's
Nice.
the kind of stuff I'm capable
It's
of.
worth sticking with him, Scott. I think he's shown promise.
He's developing. He's learning.
Oh, yeah, getting there. Casper
I think
Schmeichel.
got a place at the World Cup at this rate.
Don't get my hopes
Steady.
Casper Schmeichel. I get lost there. Casper Schmeichel on CBS last night revealed that he might have played his last game ever, which is a bit of a shock, Keith.
Oh, I think that everything about it was a bit of a shock. Oh, well, let's just qualify that for a wee second. Anybody who's been watching Kasper Schmeichel over these last few months, it won't have come as too big a shock that he's got a problem with his shoulder, because it became more and more glaringly obvious with each passing week, culminating, I think, in the goal that he lost at Kilmarnock. Hard to understand how Celtic's medical department weren't on top of this situation. I don't know. What I really found confusing was that as you said there, he chose to make this announcement in an interview with his dad for an American TV channel at a Champions League game, and doesn't even mention Celtic.
Aye.
I don't know. Do you know? Look, might be a million miles out here, but someone somewhere isn't doing their job. And it points to the kind of state of confusion that Celtic as a club seem to be in behind the scenes right now. How is it possible that this guy has been performing? You know, we had a story last night, didn't we, at the top of Hotline Live, that bad news for Mohamed Diomande at Rangers. Unbeknownst to anybody, his shoulder actually popped out his socket during the first half of the cup tie against Celtic. And he now is waiting to find out the full extent of the damage, whether or not he'll be back playing again before the end of the season. If it's been really badly dislocated and needs surgery, that's highly unlikely. That's Mohamed Diomande. So, you know, I'm not saying that he should be able to play on with a shoulder injury, but he should have a better chance of doing that than a goalkeeper. And especially a goalkeeper that was letting goals fly in left, right and centre and look really suspect getting down to his left-hand side. If the guy, and you know, I think we have to bear in mind here, this is a quite literally a sore one for Casper Schmeichel. He could be looking, and probably is looking, at the end of his top-class career here. And that, you know, we need to have a bit of empathy with the guy. But at the same time, either he wasn't being open and honest, or Celtic's medical department weren't across this. Because for whatever reason, he started the season as the first choice for Brendan Rodgers. He remained first choice under Martin O'Neill first time round. He stayed first choice for Wilfred Nongse, and he's been first choice again in Martin's second coming as Celtic manager this season. If I was a manager, I'd be asking my medical department, how did nobody think to tell me that he's playing with a dislocated shoulder? I think it's utterly incredible. And I also found it, as I said, really strange that when the manner in which they announced this, because it was only a few days ago that Martin O'Neill was saying, well, he's not going to Ibrox because he was feeling a bit poorly, I think was the word. Poorly? His arm's hanging off. So I'm really struggling with this. And I'm sure that Martin O'Neill if I'm perplexed by it, he must be absolutely astonished. But it does, for me, it points to something somewhere behind the scenes is far from right there. And it did look obvious. You know, we're not goalkeeping experts, but you can tell when somebody is really toiling, and it was happening time and time again. He was so suspect at his left-hand side. And I've actually lost count the amount of goals that he should have done better with throughout that period. Now you understand why. He needs two operations, not just one. He needs two separate operations. So, yeah, I think from a Celtic perspective, Martin O'Neill will probably just be in a hurry now to move on. He's got Sinisalo, who's come in and is doing fine. And that's good news for Celtic going forward. But it does point to, in this bizarre season that we've had, where everybody's gone through a looking glass, it transpires that Celtic might have been playing for a few months of the season with a goalkeeper whose arms had gone.
Aye. Well, look, I mean, you can see as well, and even in just some of the photos that we've uploaded, he was going for balls with his wrong hand for ages, and it looked bizarre. And
Yeah.
I mean, what do you make of it, Scott?
I totally agree.
Right, clearly can't get his left arm up there. That's what you're looking at. That he can't get his left arm up, so he's having to go to his left-hand side, leading with his right hand. But that's a great picture to illustrate it. But I'm sure there's another 5 or 6 or 7 pictures out there that would illustrate it the exact same way.
Yep.
Yeah, and by the way, it wasn't just on his left side. I mean, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Stuttgart game, he lost a bad goal going down his right as well. And it obviously it would affect both sides. It certainly does explain a lot. You're right, Jacko, that Kelly goal in particular, where he's kind of scrambling with the wrong arm to try and keep a ball out that should have been fairly routine for him. So you do feel for him in that sense. He has been struggling, toiling to make saves. But I mean, you're saying who's been honest or who knows about it. I mean, Schmeichel said in that interview that he's been taking jags, taking pills, taking injections. That's
so the medical department must have known.
That's just to make people at the club know exactly what's going on. But they've been willing to. Well, they obviously rate him so highly as the number one goalkeeper that whatever it takes, just get him out there, get him playing, which doesn't say much for Sinisalo when you think about it, which is surprising because, as you say, Sinisalo's come in and actually done pretty well for them. So it is a bit bizarre. Now, obviously, Celtic fans, I've seen a lot of them on social media today, not happy with Casper Schmeichel, calling him selfish, self-preservation, talking about making sure or trying to make sure he's ready for the World Cup, willing to do anything. And Celtic fans are obviously taken from that. He's saying that even if that's to the detriment of Celtic, losing goals. So fans, I think, understandably, when they listen to that, aren't they happy with it? And as you say, Jacko, I mean, probably the most bizarre thing of all, you touched on it, and I watched the full thing today. Not to mention Celtic once, and I just thought it was extraordinary. I mean, it was
really curious.
It was. I mean, he's surely not been naive enough to think because it was CBS, nobody in Scotland
wasn't going to come back here.
Nobody in Scotland would see it, or no Celtic fans would see it. I mean, for three guys standing there, also Micah Richards and Peter Schmeichel there as well, all talking about the situation, and none of them mention his club. I thought it was utterly bizarre.
Worse than that, Scott. Micah Richards was talking to him and saying almost like he was still the Man City goalkeeper. I saw you out there on the pitch and looking, and as if you were, you must have been desperate just to get out there and be part of the warm-up. Man City player, Micah.
But Peter Schmeichel actually references the Stuttgart game, but doesn't mention Celtic. That's who he was playing for against Stuttgart.
The whole thing is just nowhere near passing a smell test. I'll be really fascinated to see what Martin O'Neill says about this, because ultimately Martin O'Neill has come out and said, that when there was a kind of a suspicion that maybe he wasn't pleased, Schmeichel, when he lost his place to Sinisalo, then all of a sudden he didn't turn up at Ibrox. So Martin O'Neill was kind of gone into bat for Kasper Schmeichel. Look, it's probably best just to wait and see what Martin O'Neill says about it and how he explains it, because I can imagine it. But here's the thing, Scott, right? You've been in your share of dressing rooms, right? Obviously, a while ago. But I'm sure if you were going out onto a pitch, right, and let's just say, for example, it was Mick Gannon. Mick Gannon's in goals, right? And Mick's dislocated his shoulder. You'd be like, Mick, any chance?
He normally looks as if he was playing with one arm anyway.
I Poppadom gloves on. But there's no way that you're going to go out onto that pitch happy about the fact, it's Big Mick, we can't be hardened, but Big Mick's coming out onto the pitch like this. It doesn't work like that. Dressing rooms don't work like that. There would be somebody inside that dressing room that would be making an issue of this, especially as the goals are flying in.
Well,
I just can't understand that.
That's what I was going to say. If you're Callum McGregor, you're watching those goals going against Stuttgart and then Kelly, that vital game at Rugby Park. At some point, as captain, I think you'd be saying to the manager, or certainly saying to Casper Schmeichel, look, what's going on here? You're not looking yourself. These are shots you should be saving. What's the problem? And if he tells you his shoulder's gone, I mean, you're right. I think as a teammate, as a fellow player, you'd be thinking this can't go on. I think it's been really. I don't know who's advised Casper Schmeichel to announce it in that way, but I think
it shows a bit of a lack of respect for the club, to be honest with you. A bit of a lack.
Really ill-advised, and I think when he looks back on it and he sees the reaction to it, he might regret how it's come out. I mean, I was going to ask, is there a tiny chance that his dad's kind of thrown him under the bus a wee bit? If you listen to it, I don't think Casper's...
His dad knew when he asked the question, right, here's from a purely journalistic perspective. When Peter Schmeichel asks the question, he doesn't ask it not knowing what the answer is. It looked like a setup. Yeah. There's no way that Peter Schmeichel was then shocked to find out that his son needs 2 shoulders operation and he's probably going to miss the World Cup. No, I think so it's a setup.
I think he knew, but the way I looked at it was Peter Schmeichel kind of said to Casper, and you got some news today, didn't you? And look, Kasper Schmeichel looked more than happy to reveal that news, but I just wondered if there was a tiny chance that obviously...
There's no way that his dad asked that question without previously saying to Casper, well, I ask you.
Nah, you're right.
There's no way. You're long enough in this game to know, Scott. There is just no way. I mean, even if it was a situation where it wasn't your son, and just say it was you or a football player, and in that situation, there are certain things that are, just you got to play by the rules a little bit.
Yeah.
That was set up. That was father to son. I'm going to ask you this question. Give your answer.
Let's reveal it on CBS.
Now, what I would say is, what would make it even worse was this Peter Schmeichel trying to get a scoop at his, at the expense of his son. Listen, everything about this is off. That's what I keep saying. It's just not passing a smell test on any conceivable basis. And no wonder there are people quite annoyed by it. Because ultimately, Celtic might look back in this season and think, this guy was playing with one shoulder, and at that point, Celtic were losing really costly goals at big moments in games. And I've been the first, and you can look back in the tapes all you want. Daniel, you'll stand up for me. How often have I stood up when Kasper Schmeichel was getting a hard time, saying, you've got to remember, this guy has made some incredible saves at incredible moments in big games.
I don't remember
that. Well, I guarantee you that I did too.
No,
but I think this is a disrespect to his teammates. It's a disrespect to the football club. It's a bit of disrespect to the fans. If he's been putting himself out there on the firing line, knowing that he wasn't either fit enough or well enough equipped to deal with it, because Denmark came first, or his ambitions to play at another World Cup came first, that's really unacceptable for me.
You mentioned the reaction, and we've got a plethora of comments coming in. If you want to get involved, let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Chickaroony, though, says he put everything on the line to keep playing. How can you criticise that? Chilpill says Casper is a professional. He should have been honest about his fitness. Every single Celtic fan could tell you he wasn't fit. Paul says he's put us in with a chance of losing the league to get to the World Cup and reach 1,000 games. Selfish, very, very selfish. John says Casper's situation is embarrassing. You know he was struggling but somehow played. What was the goalie coach or the manager doing? John says that Stevie Wonder could tell you that Schmeichel had a dodgy shoulder last season, let alone this season. David says it's disrespectful to the club and fans spending good money to go and see your team, and he's chucking in goals with a broken shoulder so he can try and get to the World Cup. Marzuno says as well, I think he was trying to bluff his way to the World Cup. So, fairly strong reaction.
Again, listen, I take all of these points on board. I keep coming back to one. What's the medical department doing? If they had scans, presumably they must have had scans. Presumably the scans have gone to the medical department. Presumably people have said, that's a bad one. We might need to get you a course of injections here to make you able to play. It seems to me as if there's been a total breakdown in communication somewhere along the line here, because when it comes right down to it, Martin O'Neill's come out of retirement at the age of 73, now 74, trying to rescue this season for Celtic. Are you telling me, are we supposed to believe that Martin O'Neill, if he knew that his goalkeeper, that his arm was hanging off, given that everything that Martin O'Neill's trying to put into this kind of salvage mission at Celtic, he would have went with Casper Schmeichel?
That's what I was going to say.
I find that so hard to believe.
There's a wee bit of me, and I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but I thought as maybe Schmeichel kept the extent of this injury to himself. But as you said, Scott, he said he was taking injections and painkillers. They must have been aware of it.
They maybe didn't know just how bad it was.
Right.
No, the fact that they're taking injections or taking tablets, it's normally just to kind of kill the pain, and you can try and get through it. But in terms of Martin O'Neill, I mean, there were times, obviously, when Schmeichel was getting criticised, O'Neill came out and backed him, and had to back him because he was getting serious flack at one point. So again, it's going to be really interesting to know, what did Martin O'Neill know about the extent of that injury? How aware was he of just how bad it was and how much it was affecting him? So I mean, we'll probably find out on Friday at his press conference. But certainly, it doesn't look good. Doesn't look good for Schmeichel himself, because he, as Jacko says, that kind of a wee bit of disrespect, thinking about Denmark over his club, or himself over his club, and it doesn't look good for Celtic either. Shitting goals, try to win a title, losing goals they shouldn't, when they know their goalkeeper's injured and they've got other goalies there. It just doesn't make any sense.
By the way, if you think about this, and this is our side of the business, Scott, right? But think about this purely from a PR perspective, right? If you're advising Casper Schmeichel, just purely in terms of PR, or advising Celtic purely in terms of PR, the last thing, or the last way to announce it was in the manner that they chose to announce it. Yep. You would just say, you would leave it to Martin O'Neill at his next press conference to say, we've had a bit of bad news. Casper's shoulder just kept on niggling, so we sent him away for a second opinion, and it was worse than we could have anticipated, worse than he anticipated. And people will take that.
Yep.
But for him to be down at watching his old club in the Champions League, getting interviewed by his dad, and presumably getting paid for it by an American sports channel, on all possible levels, it's a PR disaster. So you've got to wonder who's in charge of this.
Yep.
And if Celtic even had an inkling that he was going to go down there, why did they allow it to happen? I find it astonishing, staggering.
I know.
Really poor.
Can you think, again, as you say, from a PR point of view, as soon as you know Schmeichel's going to cover that game, going to be on TV, the last thing you're saying to him before he goes is, listen, don't be speaking.
Keep it under wraps. Let the manager deal with this at the weekend.
Yeah. Don't be speaking about the injury. We'll announce it. We'll come to some kind of agreement as to when and how it's getting announced. It was a bad move. It doesn't reflect well on anybody, to be honest.
No.
Stuart says in the comments, why don't you stop speculating? Ask Martin on Friday. You're crucifying the goalie, the club, the staff, and the manager without knowing anything. I think it's safe to say Martin O'Neill will be asked on Friday.
But we do know everything because Casper.
We know that he's been playing needing two separate operations, and that he's probably career ending.
And Marzuno says as well, Casper's been around. He's almost 40. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah. And that's what like I said at the start of this. I'll be fascinated to see how Martin O'Neill deals with this at his press conference at the weekend. And it'll be fascinating to learn, how much he knew about this.
But it does speak to, Keith, the fact that Celtic are a bit of a shambles in almost every department, it feels like.
That is the kind of one of the takeaways from it. There's a whole bunch of different takeaways. But one of them is Celtic as a football club, whether it's the PR side of it, whether it's the medical side of it, there seems to be a breakdown or several behind the scenes, because there should be no way that an episode like this gets to play itself out the way it just has. Whether that be on the pitch with some of the performances and the goals that have been lost, off the pitch with the way that it's been announced, or even from the perspective of Martin O'Neill, a guy who, as we keep saying, is breaking his back for the football club right now. I think he's been made to look a bit foolish here. And there'll be people looking at this going, well, how much did you know? Did you know he wasn't fit to keep goal when you were consistently picking him in front of Sinisalo? I think Martin O'Neill deserves to be put in a situation like that, to be perfectly frank.
As important they say, Daniel, I think one of the callers there's mentioned it. I mean, taking all that away, if it is the end of his career, no, and I think Terry Henry brought this up on the CBS show last night. It's a shame, I think, for any player, if they need to call it a day and they don't have a choice in it, no, that it's not in their terms. And Casper Schmeichel, whatever you think of him right now, he's been an unbelievable goalkeeper, an incredible career. And I suppose for any player, no, you would never want to go out like that, knowing it's two operations, no kind of big send-off. Obviously, in the last few games of his Celtic career weren't great, get fans booing him and stuff like that. It's just the way a guy like that with the career he's had should probably go out. So I think for that point of view, it is a shame. I think you're doing it to kind of feel for him. Do you know what I mean? And you would hope, listen, it's a long road back for him. If he's saying it's 12 months, what is he, 40, coming up for 40, it'll be after he's 40 and he comes back. I suppose if he's looking for any kind of inspiration, somebody like Craig Gordon has proved it can be done.
That's a very good point, Scott.
So you wouldn't rule anything out. So listen, hopefully, I don't think it's going to be at Celtic, obviously, but you would hope he gets back at least playing at some level and he can get the kind of, he can retire on his own terms.
The other big news today, guys, and if you're watching at home, as I say, keep letting us know your opinions. I'll try and read them out, but there's so many coming in tonight, guys. The other big news from our esteemed colleague, Andy Newport, filed a story for Record Sport Online today. Rangers are interested in Elijah Just. It's Celtic that's been credited with interest up until now, but Rangers are apparently in for him. I
think he's going to attract a lot of attention, Daniel, for what he's done this season. Elijah Just, I mean, he's arguably he's a Player of the Year contender. I would argue for his performances. You think your Motherwell picking him up again? Jensberg to Askou, trying to go him for 300 grand. Playing the Danish league. Askou obviously knew about him. Clearly, as soon as he got the Motherwell job, thought, I want to get this guy. I mean, what a signing he's been for them. New Zealand international, probably go to the World Cup. He's in a long contract at Motherwell. I think it's 2027. They've got another year option, so they're kind of well protected in that sense. I think he's going to attract a lot of interest. I'm no surprised. But Rangers and Celtic should be looking at him for his performances in the top flight this season. And in terms of Rangers, I just think generally Rangers, I know for a fact that they are constantly now looking at the Scottish Premiership and looking at the players doing well in this league. They're not going to sign all of them, clearly. But I think they are more aware now, more on the ball in terms of their kind of scouting, in terms of what's round about them. I wouldn't like to think they'd make the same mistake again when you think of guys that they've missed out on, Lewis Ferguson, Lawrence Shankland, to name a couple. So no, it doesn't surprise me they're looking at just same with Celtic, and there'll be others, in England and abroad, no doubt, because he's proved himself to be a terrific attacking midfielder in this league. So why wouldn't you be looking at him?
He's been brilliant, Keith, hasn't he? 7 goals, 7 assists, and as Scott kind of touched on there, if Celtic or Rangers do want him, they'd probably be advised to get in quick, because if he goes to the World Cup, has a stormer,
Well, do you know what? I think where Rangers and Celtic have got an advantage here is that they're both huge clubs. Elijah just has now had a season in Scottish football. He understands the scale of these clubs, the size of them, the stadiums, the kind of support, everything that goes around the Old Firm. He gets it. If you were, say, he was still in Denmark or New Zealand, and Rangers and Celtic came at the table, and Sheffield United came at the table, and he didn't have any experience of, what he's had at Motherwell, I think that puts both Celtic and Rangers in front of the likely interest that might come from the second tier of English football. I don't see the Premier League in England chapping at his door. So I think that would put both Celtic and Rangers at the front of the queue. What I'm very surprised at, though, because we were talking about it at the start of the January window, if I was Celtic or Rangers, I would have been battering down Motherwell's door back then. It was obvious there was 2 or 3 players in that side, and he was probably at the top of that list, that looked as if he could just slot straight in.
And especially
because of the quality he's got.
You look at Celtic bringing in, and again, no disrespect, but Mavuka, Adamu. Celtic really needed creative players in the wide area.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Would you say he's a wide player? I'm not sure that he is. I think he does a lot of work centrally, but no, I just think he's a very good football player. There's not a pick on him, by the way. You'd think a strong wind would knock him down. But he likes to get wired in. He's good at winning balls back, making tackles, being aggressive. But it's what he does on the ball, how he glides past people, the passes that he picks. A really intelligent football player, and I don't care where you want to play him. A really good, talented, technically clever football player could fit into either that Celtic starting 11 right now or the Rangers starting 11. So I'm really surprised that they saw him operating on their doorstep for the first 6 months of the season and didn't think it might be a good idea to go and ask the question in January.
I was trying to think, Jacko, who he kind of reminds me of, or a kind of similar type player. The guy I thought he was Ryan Christie. Do you agree with that? Is that a bit?
I'd see what you're saying.
It's not a bad shout.
Ryan Christie about him, who obviously did really well for Celtic and get a move to the or ended up in the Premier League. And I agree. I mean, he's been brilliant on the ball, but off the ball as well. No, when you look at Motherwell,
phenomenal.
When you look at Motherwell and how they play and how they press under Askou, I think Askou spoke about it himself. Just is almost always the one that goes and triggers the press for them. So you need to be really intelligent to do that, and then everybody goes and follows. And because he's work rate, because he's kind of you kind of desire to do it, not to graft and go and chase people down and hunt the ball back. He's been vital to Motherwell. And the other interesting thing, obviously, is we're talking about Rangers and Celtic being in for him. If Askou ends up being the Celtic manager in the summer,
well, we know how that story ends.
Exactly. If you're Askou and you get the Celtic job, like if he goes to Celtic, he'll be shopping in a different market, clearly. But given his performances this season and what he's done for him there at Motherwell, you'd be amazed if Askou get that job and one of the first things he done wasn't go for just at Motherwell.
See, when you look at the fact players like Balakwisha, $5 million, how much could Motherwell ask for, do you think?
that's potentially where both Rangers and Celtic have got a problem because it's fine. Our clubs will sit there wishing that they could spend the sort of money that Celtic and Rangers spend in transfer fees, and you look at the money that's been so badly misspent on players that don't look anywhere near the required standard to get into that first team. Well, if I'm Motherwell, I'm sitting there going, well, this guy's been running rings around both of your midfields all season. So, see that 5 million you spent there and the 4 million you spent there. Don't come at me with anything less than a bigger number than that if you want our best player, because you know for yourself that what is it they say? There's a risk involved with any transfer, which is totally correct. But you've minimised the risk here because here's a guy that you've watched doing it week in, week out in the Scottish League with a team supposedly of a lesser quality than what you're supposed to have. So that then, rather than Motherwell have obviously won a watch. Did you say 300 grand, the original fee that they paid? Well, that 300 grand is going to be multiplied by about 20. Because I honestly think if you're Motherwell, you could turn around and be in fairly solid ground if you say to Celtic and Rangers, well, the bidding starts at 5. How high are you prepared to go?
Aye.
And then you just let the two of them battle it out. And you just walk about with a big black bin bag catching money.
And the great thing for Motherwell is they've almost kind of set the bar, Daniel, in terms of holding out for the right fee for Lennon Miller. People probably, I was probably guilty of it myself, saying, Rangers and Celtic, why don't they just give me 2 million, 2.5 million, they'll get them because Motherwell need to sell. Credit to Motherwell, they held out, got what they wanted for Lennon Miller. They've basically did the same with Maswanisi in January, when there must have been clubs asked about. I think Askou's been quoted as saying clubs inquired and maybe even made bids, but not. They held on to him because they knew they wanted him for the end of the season. Obviously, that will kind of come to the fore again in the summer. The Maswanisi, but they've almost kind of set a level. Motherwell, they've kind of they've done well to kind of show teams. We won't be kind of messed about here. If we rate players and there's real interest in them from different clubs, then we'll hold out for what we think's right. So they're in a great position, as I say. They've got them a decent contract. Obviously, things might change, if the manager moves on. But getting into the summer, we just, as you say, going to a World Cup as well. I mean, if he plays and does well over there, the price just keeps going up. So they're in a great position, Motherwell.
I think whoever gets him is getting a really good player. If I was either side of Celtic or Rangers, I would be.
I know Jack was saying, talking about Mvuka or Balikwisha in a slightly different position.
Aye.
But you're right. The basis of what you're saying is right. The money these teams are spending on absolute rubbish, it's no contributing, is staggering. I mean, you look at, and I'm not saying he's rubbish, but you look at Rangers, kind of semi-committing to Skov Olsen, for instance. And I know Rangers have got the option, but I mean, if they take up that option, you're talking £8 million for this guy. I mean, that's a lot of money for what you've watched for Skov Olsen so far. If you're looking at him and just the profiles and what they've done, and I know it's maybe a wee bit harsh on Skov Olsen since he's not been here that long, but you look at what Just is doing. I don't think you'd be spending your 8 million on Skov Olsen in the summer. I think if you could get just for half of that.
Tell me this, Scott. How much did Rangers? What was the fee for Thelo Askou?
£3.5 million for Luton.
That's a fair chunk.
There you go.
Right,
you're right.
You tell me who you having. If you want to find a player to play in that advanced area of the pitch, somebody that can create goals, score goals, be a game changer. I mean, £3.5 million thrown away in Thelo Askou.
Yeah.
Whereas that boy, Elijah Just, would walk straight in and be an upgrade right away. So if you're prepared to spend £3.5 million taking a punt on Thelo Askou, who you've not seen, who's played down the leagues in England, and here's a guy in your backyard proving week on week what he can do in the top division of Scotland. That's why I come back to it. £5 million, and you can start the bidding from there.
In the comments, Chick says they would need to give us $1 million plus just for Welsh. McKenna says Lenny Miller went for 4.7, just would be around 5 million. Quadruple says in a passing pressing team, he's ideal. Rebel says Celtic's midfield needs rebuilt. He would be a good start. And David says, let's just go and buy Motherwell, which is an interesting idea. Maybe something worth thinking about for Celtic.
That was another theory that I put forward in January, I think. Just go and buy the Motherwell midfield, take the Motherwell manager. Yeah.
See, look, every time I see Elliot Watt as well, I think he's brilliant.
Elliot Watt's he was one of the guys I was talking about. He's a terrific season. I think maybe the work that he does probably kind of doesn't pale into insignificance, but it kind of goes a little bit in the shadows compared to when there's a guy like Elijah just doing what he's doing in different areas of the pitch. But yeah, Elliot Watt, another one who would probably walk into just about every single midfield in the top division this season. So yeah, Motherwell have got a whole lot right. Now, look, the Askou thing is interesting. We had an interesting discussion with Craig Swan last night, who did raise an interesting point. If you look at Motherwell's season, when Motherwell have played the big games, the real pressure games, their track record's not great. The track record's not great against the. There have been some brilliant performances, results-wise, not been great, and you can get away with that. Motherwell, of course, you can, because they have been an absolute breath of fresh air of the division. They've been an incredible story, a brilliant. In terms of the standard of football they've brought, by far and away, I think the most entertaining side to watch, which is all very good. But for Askou to take the Celtic job, he has to go into that with his eyes wide open, and he's a smart enough guy to get this. But you don't get the chance to come in and say, "Oh, football's fantastic," and we nearly won that one, and we nearly won that one, and maybe next year we will do that. You don't get that sort of breathing space. But I do think, if you look in the round here, he's done enough in this first season at Motherwell to make you think, wow, what could he do with bigger budgets, better players? What sort of team does he end up in charge of? And I think there's a lot for people to chew on there, because there is an element of risk, but what he's done at Motherwell sort of again brings down that level of risk if you were looking at making an appointment.
It's the same with players, Jacko. You touched on it. Elijah just has done brilliantly with Motherwell, and if you go and sign him, there'll always be that question as to can he take that jump? Can he go and play at Rangers or Celtic in front of 50, 60,000? Can he play under
that?
Will the
shirt be too heavy? Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So there's always that question, but as you say, it's about minimising the risk. You've seen enough of him, or you've got the opportunity to see enough of him this season to think, no, he could do a job. And I've said it a million times on here. In the past, Rangers and Celtic have went and got players from other clubs in Scottish football in the top flight, and they've been brilliant for them. I mean, the list is endless. Guys, picking guys up in the cheap. I keep talking about Rangers back in the day going and getting like Kurt Broadfoot and Nacho Novo, guys that would take them to a European final. Do you know what I mean? So a few of the comments coming up there are just would they cut it at the old firm? It's different playing for Motherwell. Of course it is, but I think when you've seen enough of him, and when you're minimising that risk, as Jacko says, compare it to Asgard. You go and spend $3.5 million Asgard. How do you know Asgard's going to go for Luton but perform at Rangers? Do you know what I mean? Whereas this guy's on their doorstep. You can watch him
playing against the teams that you're playing against every week, and starring and putting in man of the match displays every week against the same opposition that he'd be facing, just wearing a different shirt next season.
Exactly.
McKenna is a big Jambo, says you won't get Braga on the cheap. He's the other one that I think in the summer. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens.
Again, that's brilliant though, isn't it? What was Braga's fee? Absolute buttons.
Pennies, aye.
Buttons.
He's a really good player, Braga. Really clever player.
And it'll be interesting to see the Hearts model. It might well be that, you sell when he's at what you think is the optimum price. But Braga, wow. I mean, there will be clubs banging the door down, surely to goodness, for Braga. Everybody wants a goal scorer. Everybody wants a striker that goes out there and bangs them in. And it's not just that with Braga. It's his work rate, his intensity,
attitude.
Attitude's spot on. So it'll be interesting because Hearts might say, do you know what? He's not peaked yet. We'll take him. We'll just keep him here. He's happy here. He's got a chance of European football, whatever. He might want to stay. And what potential fee are you looking at after year 2 of Claudio Braga? So there's so many things to take into consideration, but it is brilliant to see Scottish clubs having that skill set, or whether it's the algorithms or scouting networks, whatever it is, to go out there, buy low and sell high. Because the more cash that generates comes into the Scottish game, it makes it healthier. And it is about time that clubs that kind of always felt as if they had to just take their dumps and sell it without a premium. Well, now they're saying, nah, we're not doing that anymore. There will be a premium here. Yeah. And good on them. And it's thoroughly deserved.
The very last thing that I want to touch on before we wrap up, guys, it's season ticket renewal day at Rangers, Keith. Or is it?
Yeah. Well, apparently not. I don't know, what was it, an hour and a half before we come on the show tonight, Rangers social media put out a message on X saying that the renewal date has been pushed back by a week. And I think they said because of recent events, and it's left everybody speculating what those recent events might be. I can only imagine that it involves the scenes that we saw at the end of the Scottish Cup quarter-final tie with Celtic, potentially the group of supporters that ran on wearing their Spider-Man masks. I don't know if they're going to shut down the Spidey section of the stadium. I don't know. But that you can only take from that because of something recent, that they're not pressing ahead with season tickets, and that suggests to me that there's things to be agreed on before such times as they're willing to put certain season tickets up for sale and onto the market. So that's one to monitor closely over the next week or so. They said they've pushed it back by a week, so if there is a decision to be made there, or stadium bans or season ticket bans or whatever, then, well, it stands to reason that we'll find out about that over the course of the next few days.
Do we think, Scott, that there's a section of the Rangers fans that maybe should be a wee bit worried?
Possibly. I mean, I must admit, I hadn't thought it. Obviously, Rangers just announced it a wee while ago. It was only when Keith mentioned it I thought, no, there might be something in that. I mean, what it does suggest is that whatever's going to happen is going to happen pretty quickly, because a week isn't giving you a lot of time to kind of sort all of that out. So I just wonder whether there's going to be real developments regarding that in the next few days.
That's what I'm saying, Scott. If they're going to push it back by a week, then presumably whatever the issue is that they're having to address will have been addressed in that week before the tickets do go on sale.
So do you think that'll be totally separate, Keith, to the investigation, the kind of ongoing investigation, or
the judicial process? Exactly. I mean, look, do you know what? But listen, see if we're all being honest about it, right? And yes, I get it. You know, the ordinary circumstances, you might say, well, we need to wait until people are identified, and if people are charged and then convicted, then you've got, on that basis, you can make decisions about who qualifies to get a season ticket. When you've got a whole bunch of goons running on the pitch from one end of the park, one specific part of the stadium, they're all dressed the same and they're all wearing Spider-Man masks. There is a problem with how do you identify who's under the mask. I get that, but that you've got a specific problem area in your ground, and it's up to you as a club, I would imagine, if you want to regardless of what convictions do or don't happen over the next while criminally, there's an area of the ground that's a problem area. So what do you do about that? Do you say, right, you guys can all come back in again next season, or do you say, guys, you've lost your privileges, you've lost your rights, and these tickets will go on general sale to the general public? I don't know how it works, but I would imagine that is the issue that Rangers are confronting. And then you wouldn't need to wait for prosecutions and criminal convictions, Scott. Then you just say, listen, you guys, we've given you this area. You've let us down. You've let yourselves down. You've let the club down. You no longer qualify for that area. Now, how you go about reallocating, I don't know. But are they entitled to have an area at all? Would be a question after that.
You can see there AF Scott in the comments saying, Scott, that Kavanagh was obviously in the away end at the Samisa Stadium at the weekend, talking to Rangers fans. I think this is something that you be seriously thinking about.
Aye, no, he's certainly been. I've seen him do that a couple of times. Daniel, he's been a lot more visible in that. Also, I was at St Mirren at the weekend, seen him getting over there. No, he'll know like it. Clearly, it wasn't a good look. No, those pictures are getting beamed all around the world for that. No, the aftermath of that Old Firm game. I mean, as Jacko said, how they actually go about it. I mean, unless they just ban that whole section or take the whole, because it's impossible, I think, to go and pick and choose. No, who's done what, or who's done something worse.
You can identify an area of the stadium that is posing you a security issue.
Yeah.
And do something about changing the makeup of who gets to sit in there. I would have thought.
Yeah.
I think Jacko just wants a season ticket, Daniel. He's hoping a few guys.
Do you know, Scott, I've heard something similar. I heard he's asking about
He's
trying to get one.
that waiting list, isn't he?
That's it.
I'm still on the waiting list to get into the press box, Scott.
Look, whatever happens, we'll be here to cover it all on the Hotline Live with Record Sport. But I think for tonight, guys, that brings us to the end of the show. Brought to you by NordVPN, the best VPN in all the land. Scott, it's always a pleasure having you on. And happy birthday for yesterday, by the way.
Cheers,
mate.
Oh,
happy birthday, wee man.
My Scott's birthday yesterday, Keith.
Yeah, St Paddy's Day. I was dying with a cold, but apart from that, I'll be all right. I'll make up for it the weekend. Don't worry about that.
I don't doubt it. And Keith, it's always an absolute pleasure.
What's this day? What are we today? Wednesday?
Yep.
One more show to go. Tomorrow, 6 o'clock, Dan. Let's get the weekend started.
Absolutely. Well, as Keith says, we'll be back at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Hope you can join us then. Thanks for all the comments and contributions. See you then. Thanks for watching.